Hello, my name is Hunter Nannon. Today I'm going to go over the hardware and security slides with you guys and try to give you a little bit more information and some clarity on them. For the slides, at the beginning we have a table of contents. Here you can click on any of these links right here and they will take you to the specific slide that each topic is associated with. But let's first start off with antivirus protection. Something to consider is that not everybody needs virus protection. Almost nobody does. It has been pushed in through clever marketing and just how society works today with scare tactics, with viruses on the news and whatnot, that you need virus protection. And this is just not the case. Typically, these virus softwares, all they do is they constantly run scans in the background, going through all of your files and slowing down your computer tremendously. They take up tons of resources, and most of the time, they're not even doing anything helpful to your computer. Typically, Windows Defender that is built into Windows is just fine and plenty enough for any basic virus protection. If you download something and it's got a virus on it, your Windows Defender is probably going to detect it and tell you about it. Now, the best way to avoid getting viruses is just common sense. Doing safe internet usage, knowing not to click on that pop-up ad that said you won $1,000. It's just a lot of, if it looks sketchy and that you shouldn't click on it, then you shouldn't. The best way to avoid is just knowing that there are dangerous people out there who want to steal your information, who want to put viruses on your computer, and to keep that in mind while you're browsing. Now, there are specific antivirus programs that you really should avoid that are even more of a virus than viruses, because they just will tremendously destroy your computer performance by constantly taking up resources. That are going to be McAfee and Norton. Those are very, very two common softwares that are wrapped in with computer manufacturers. They make deals so when you say Dell sells you a computer, they've made a deal with McAfee that every computer they sell is going to have McAfee pre-installed on it. And all this is going to do, slow down your computer, constantly spam you with notifications to renew your subscription, and that is not good. So basically, if your computer comes with it, get rid of it. It's not a good thing to have on your computer. Now, let's move on. So, internet security. The internet, like I said before, is filled with people who want to steal your information. It is important through both personal and professional internet uses to stay secure, especially professional when you get into your business life. If people are going to try and take advantage of your position in companies to gain access to your company's private servers or whatnot to get information from them. So it's really important to stay security mindful when you are a part of these big corporations, because all it takes is one human mistake of clicking on the wrong email to compromise a whole company. Now, I want to go over three different aspects of security. That's going to be password management, email security, and safe web browsing. Now, password management. This is probably where most data breaches occur. This is going to be people making bad passwords, having the same password for everything. You don't want to make passwords that have factors that are related to your common life in them, like your favorite color, what street you grew up on, your favorite sports team, etc. Anything that can be easily linked to you by some guy going to Facebook, looking at stuff you like, and trying to figure out your password that way. Now, passwords like the CGVAD, bunch of letters and stuff that is put right here, these are good passwords, but a misconception that it is the best type of password, and it's not. what's actually the best type of password and one of the hardest things for hackers to get into, or these scripts that try a bunch of different passwords to figure out your password, is phrases. So like how stated on the side, it says, "I like pies." That is going to be harder for a password breaching program to figure out than the random letters, numbers, and exclamation points and whatnot. Now, a good thing to check, which I check about once a month, is these tools. So specifically, Have I Been Pwned? This is a really good website where you can put in your email and it will check to see if you've been part of any known data breaches. With pretty much every account you have online being linked to your email in some way, it's really important for your email to stay secure. And you can put your email in here. It will tell you, oh no, you've been part of 3 data leaks or data breaches. And that's just when a company's information gets leaked out. And by doing this, you can know I need to change my password for my email, because a lot of the time, if someone gets your email password, they have everything, because that's where all your recoveries go to if you forget your password and whatnot. Another good tool is password managers. A lot of them are paid, but you don't need to have paid ones. Google's password manager that's built into Chrome and your Gmails and whatnot work really well. That just allows you to have multiple different passwords for different things, so that if one person gets one of your passwords, they don't have access to every single one of your accounts. Now let's look at email security. This is going to be really important in your business life, because this is where you're going to get a lot of common attacks where people try to get your organizational info, as well as things like your bank account information and stuff like that. Phishing attacks are going to be emails that look official, like they're from, say, PayPal. It'll say that like PayPal says you have been compromised and your information needs to be changed. And it's going to look official. It's going to have all the right keywords, everything like that. You're going to click on a link and it's going to ask you to log in to change your password. So you'll put in your login information. Well, it turns out that's not real PayPal. That's a phisher trying to get your information, which you just gave to them. So now they have access to your PayPal and they have access to all your money. Now, to avoid this is always check the email address. Companies like this, or hackers like this, are going to try and make the email look similar, but it's going to obviously be a little off. Like PayPal's going to be, if it's actually PayPal, it's going to be something like PayPal@customer.service or something like that. But for these guys, they would change one letter, or there will be a long string at the end of random letters and numbers or something like that that tells you this doesn't seem quite right. And that's when you know that it is a phishing attack and what you have to be very careful of. Another thing to do is turn off automatically shown images. This is a feature on all email services that you can get it to go away, because if anyone's sending you emails, the way they can tell if you view their email is by putting pictures in there that relay the information back to them. Now, you can turn that off and then they won't get that information. And why this is important is, say these phishing attacks, if they see you constantly viewing their emails every time they send them, they're going to send you more, and they're going to try and make it harder because they think you're vulnerable and they know you're looking at their stuff. Now let's go to safe web browsing. So safe web browsing is, don't go to untrustworthy sites. If it's going to look unofficial, outdated, you probably shouldn't be there. It's going to be filled with viruses more than likely. Good indicator if sites are trustworthy. Now, this is not 100% of the case, but it is good, is HTTP. It means it's a secure connection. It's a secure protocol. So if that's in front of the website name, that is good. Good way to avoid problems is get ad blockers. The main reason for protection alongside with ad blockers is They prevent pop-up ads that look like download buttons. So say you want to go download a video from some website of your favorite music artist that's offering a free download of their newest music video. It's a trustworthy site. It's a trustworthy person. You trust the download, you know it's not going to have virus on it. But what if they put ads on their site? And what if these ad makers who want to get your information know that there's a download there? They're going to make their ad look like a download button. And when doing that, it makes it hard to distinguish between what you're actually wanting to download and can cause honest mistakes where you accidentally downloaded a virus. This is why ad blockers are important. Some really good ones that I've come across are UBlock Origin. They work on Chrome and Firefox. I believe they're developing one for the new Edge. There's 2 links for both Chrome and Firefox for both of those. It's very, 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 very important to get these, especially if you're commonly downloading things on the internet, because it can prevent a lot of headaches. And bonus, you don't have ads on YouTube. With that, just when you download software as well, make sure you are not downloading group applications. A lot of common applications are going to come in packets that have more than one app built into the installer. So when you start the install process and you do the little wizard where it's like where you want to install it, yes, I want to do this, yes, I agree to the terms, all that, they're going to try and slip in things where, do you want to also install this, and have check boxes. You want to make sure the only thing you have checked is what you truly intended to install. A lot of times there can be malicious software on there. It might not necessarily be a virus, but it will probably slow your computer down a lot. And so it's good to avoid those as well. Now on to data security. So data security includes everything we just went over. It's obviously like keeping your information safe, but what a lot of people don't think about is keeping the information you want and not having it disappear on you. You never know if your computer's just going to die one day, or maybe there's going to be a big thunderstorm that shoots a big lightning bolt down onto your house and takes out all the electronics in your house. What are you going to do if on Friday you have a 50-page report that you've been working on all semester and it's only saved onto your computer? Well, you're screwed. That's going to be the same thing with reports in the business world. Report you need to get to your boss, or any important document or important project you've been working on. Now, the way to avoid this is always have redundancies. You want to store your data in multiple places. Store copies on flash drives, hard drives. Use cloud services like Google Drive. Apple has services for this as well. Everybody and their mother has cloud services these days. If you can't afford to have local storage of hard drives, I will say local is always better. Because you actually have your data, some other company doesn't, but it's better to have redundancies so situations don't occur where you are all of a sudden out of luck and do not have your data anymore because something failed, a hard drive died, or any number of things can happen. Now, in this slide deck, we have audio and video setup. This is for the current environment of the day where a lot of things are being done online, a lot of classes, a lot of meetings, etc., are all being done online. It can be a little finicky to sometimes get audio set up. Through these slides, we have a simple kind of setup guide to get things working. Same with audio, same with video. And how to test it, make sure everything is working. And you can go through those at your own pace and go along with those as you're setting your stuff up. Now, another thing that is important in your business and professional career is monitors. People do not understand that the screen you're looking at isn't just a screen. It's can affect your work. Now, there are different things that can affect what is important for your specific job title or what you're working on, etc. Things like color accuracy, black levels, and screen size. Now, let's go over your kind of color accuracy and your black levels. So sRGB and Adobe RGB, they are going to be ratings as to how color accurate your display is, like how those colors actually are in real life and how many of the real life colors can your display accurately show you. So this chart right here shows a big bunch of colors. What this is the entire sRGB color space. And sRGB and Adobe RGB are two just different ratings for it by two different companies, so two different standards. This little triangle here is what your actual computer can accurately display color-wise. So this is what, if somebody else looks on their computer or if it gets printed out, etc., this is the colors it can show accurately. As you can see, that's actually not a lot. That is not a lot of coverage. This is where it becomes important for if you're doing video creation, if you're creating printouts, posters, things that are going to have to be printed out or put on big billboards or shown commonly on other people's devices, where it's important that your color accuracy is correct, because when you're creating something, you want it to be the colors you actually are showing on your computer. And so you would want displays that are like 98% coverage of the sRGB color space and whatnot, because that will give you the accuracy that will make everything look good that you create across the board for everyone. Now, OLED, these are types of displays. They're not necessarily important, but they are important, but for really high-end creation is where these typically come into play because they're really expensive. And what these are types of displays that like let pixels completely turn off, so you get really, really good black levels. So it is what would let you know you're getting an accurate black in a creation. So that's why LEDs are important as well. Now, resolution. So resolution is the amount of pixels that are in a display, in an image, etc. This chart right here just shows the size comparison of different levels of resolution. So you get your like 480p, 576p, 1080p, etc. And as you can see, they get bigger as you go up because there's more pixels. Resolution and the size of your display are bound together. So if you have a really small display with a lot of pixels in it, it's going to be really, really, really clear. This is because you're packing, like say you have a 25-inch monitor and it is 8K resolution. You are shoving a ton of pixels into a tiny little space in comparison. So it will be very, 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 very clear. Now, in a display, pixels, they're little squares that change colors to create an image. The more of those tiny little squares you have, the better the image is going to look. So if you get a 70-inch TV and it is only 1080p, you're going to be able to physically see those little squares and it's not going to look as clear. That's why size and resolution are directly related to each other, because a small screen at 1080p can look very clear because the pixels are actually smaller, so they don't need as many. But when you get up to really, really big sizes, you do need more pixels for things to stay clear. Now, why is this important? Say that you were creating a movie. You're a film director and you have to edit a bunch of video. If you record it in 1080p and you are making the video in 1080p, what happens when your movie goes into the big screen TVs? It's going to be really blurry. In the theaters, it's going to be blown up to this huge size and it's going to look really blurry and ugly. So you need to create in higher resolution to give you the buffer that everybody has different displays. Everybody has different things that they are available to. And when you create in the high end, it lets everyone have the ability to see it clearly. This also is important for creating things that are going to be big posters or billboards, because you want to create it in high resolution so that when it's blown up from the size of your computer to the size of the billboard, it still looks clear and accurate and not fuzzy and blurry. Now, multi-monitor setups. Here we have another how-to guide on how to do that in Windows. But multi-monitor setups are going to be important for multitasking. They almost every business these days, if you go and look at their offices and look in their cubicles, a lot of the people are going to have multi-monitor setups, and this is so that they can do more tasks at once. Say you're a programmer and you're looking at huge amount of codes and you need to go through and debug it. Well, the more screen real estate you have, that's the more lines of code that you have, and the more you can look at. And that's why it's important to go through all those and have multi-monitor setups. Same for like research. You can have on one window the articles and books open up for you to go through while you have your Word doc on the other side. So it's really helpful, helps get things done faster, and just highly recommend for everybody to look into possibly getting multi-monitor setups, because it'll make your life a lot easier. Now, computer components. So this is the hardware of your computer. The reason we're going over this is it is really important to understand the components of your computer so that when you buy a computer, you know what to look for, what's important to you, why you want a certain thing over another. Understand what they do, because for certain jobs, it might not be important to spend money in certain places, but it is in others. And that's why it is good to know the components. There are a lot of components in the computer, but there's four you kind of want to look out for, especially as you're kind of average consumer. Those are going to be your processor, your graphics card, your RAM, your storage. First, we'll go over your processor. This is your CPU, or central processing unit. It's the brains of your computer, kind of the main component you hear always said. Now, you don't want to buy high-end processors when you don't need them. If you're only browsing the web, doing basic web functions, using Microsoft Office, doing basic work utilities like Google Suite, and maybe a little software that your company provides you, you don't need any expensive processor, because you're not going to gain anything from it. You don't want to underspend, but you don't want to overspend. Now, high-end processors are an important thing for heavy multitasking work where a lot of data is being used. Streaming is important, content creation. So if you're video editing, creating films, a lot of marketing jobs do things like this. Gaming uses it a lot. Large programming projects that have a lot of data involved with them, it's important for those. Design work especially, because those 3D development softwares like CAD, they take up a lot of resources. Now, here I've listed the average and kind of high-end specs to look for processors, because the naming schemes can be very confusing. But they're kind of typically, on average, easy to see how good a processor is by two factors, and that's going to be your core count and your frequency. Frequency is kind of how fast a processor runs on the most basic, simple term. And then core count is kind of like, think of it as the amount of smaller little brains that are inside it. The more cores it has, the more tasks it will be able to do at once. And then the frequency is how fast it can do those tasks. So your average computer, like cheaper, nothing too crazy, it's going to be 2 to 4 cores, nothing super high end. And then frequency is going to range from like 3 to 4 hertz. And that's what you're going to find in most computers today. Now, high-end stuff is going to be anywhere from like 8 to 24 cores. It can, honestly, with how the industry is developing, this 24 limit is becoming sky's the limit on that one. And then your high-end frequencies are going to be 4 to 5 hertz. Now, this is good to help understand for buying components, but what I do recommend is for if you're going into a specific field or you're going to be doing specific work, I highly recommend Googling common computers and common parts used in that industry. This will help you understand what to look for, what is the common core counter hertz that's used in it, and it gives you a better understanding of the environment of computers for your specific job. Because it's never going to be a cut and dry, I need to buy this, not this. It's all about use case. It's all about the personal person. It's all about the work they're doing. So just keep that in mind whenever you're looking at this, and use this as a helpful tool to help you make the right purchases, not the tool that defines the purchases you make. Now on to graphics cards. Graphics cards are typically what you will see in high-end workstations and gaming computers. They aren't required by computers to run, but what a graphics card does is it's required for the graphics. It's video rendering and output, but they are really, really powerful processing core on them. So they don't just do that. They can do other things like video creation, gaming, like I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence, design work, quantum mathematics are used in that, cryptocurrency mining. They have a ton of different use cases, but not your typical basic web browsing stuff. Yes, they'll show you video, but it's not required for computers to have it to show video. Most processors have small kind of GPUs built into them so that they can show those things, because most people don't need big honking graphics cards in their computers. Especially because these are very, very expensive components typically. High-end ones can go all the way up from like $1,000 to $2,000. This one right here is kind of a mid-range. It's a little bit older now, so it's probably worth about $200 to $300 in today's market. But this is a gaming graphics card made by NVIDIA. But with graphics cards, it's important to understand your use case. Again, if you need one, if you don't, especially if this will probably be the most expensive part in an entire computer. So know your use case, know if you need one. Again, Google, figure out if it's important for you to have one. Now, RAM. So RAM has a common misconception about it, and that is the more RAM you shove into a computer, the faster it's going to be. And that's just simply not the case. RAM it can make your computer faster if you don't have enough of it. So what RAM does is it takes commonly used data from your hard drives or your system storage, and it takes that and it makes it quickly and very available to your CPU. So things that your CPU is constantly trying to use all the time is going to be stored in this RAM for it to access really, really quickly. And you can get faster RAM, slower RAM, but the main thing that comes in when people say that getting more RAM speeds up your computer is if you don't have enough of it. So if you have completely filled up the storage of your RAM and your computer's trying to access more of it, but it can't get to it because you don't have enough RAM for storage for your CPU, then it will slow down your computer. And if you get more, there'll be enough storage for it, and then your computer will speed up. But if you don't need more, then getting more isn't going to speed up your computer at all. It depends on the use case. It depends on what you're doing if you need more. That's why it's the misconception of getting more RAM equals faster computer. That's just simply not how it works. Because if you go spend an extra $100 to get more RAM, but all you're doing is browsing the web, your computer's not going to be any faster than the $100 cheaper one that had less RAM because you're not using all of your RAM. They're really important for a large data set analysis, so your big Excel sheets and stuff like that, because there's a lot of data sitting in these chips to go to your CPU. Extreme multitasking, high resource demanding workloads, like mentioned. So RAM is a very important part of your computer. Just don't fall into the trap that like, oh, this computer has 64 gigabytes of RAM in it, and therefore it's a really fast computer. That is not necessarily the case. And lastly, we have storage. The main thing to take out of storage is hard drive versus solid state drives. Hard drives are really good for mass storage. They're cheap. They're not necessarily fast, but they're cheap. So you can get a lot of storage for cheap with these guys. But solid state drives is what you really want if you want your computer to be fast and snappy. They're a lot faster than hard drives, but they're more expensive. They're also more compact if size is important to you. So size of your computer is important. So you want to look for solid state drives if you want your Windows OS to be snappy and stuff like that. So if you're wanting a faster responding computer for your specific work case and things like that, don't just look at the storage amount it has. Like say it says it has 3 terabytes. Look at what drives give you 3 terabytes. Seeing solid state is going to be more important and mean the computer is faster than seeing just hard drive. Now, lastly, I want to go over PC versus laptop and a last couple of tips on why it is important to buy computers and like what are good tips for it. So desktops are your typical big towers. They're static. You don't move them around. They got your tower, your monitor, your keyboard, etc. They're your customizable, easy to build because they use standards that are in place. So every company that builds desktops, they tend to stick with standards that are put in place by the industry. This allows for easier upgradability over time, or making it look cool by having colorful fans in it and whatnot, and being able to change it up a lot more. Or laptops are obviously your portable computers that you can take with you to work and whatnot. They are more constrained for the fact that companies have to fit all of what's inside of a desktop into a laptop. Because of this, their standards are not as common. They're more individually developed on a case-by-case basis, which means less upgradability, less customability, etc. Now, desktops are typically going to be cheaper for similar specs compared to laptops because, like I said, you got to put in all that design work to get it to fit in the laptop and work properly. You got to worry about how hot it gets because it's so much smaller, things like that. Where desktops use typical standards so that it will be easier for them to just throw the parts in, and then there you go, you have a high performing desktop computer. So it's important if you're needing an expensive computer with really good specs to probably look towards desktop more than laptop and buy a cheaper laptop as like a extra bit of utility that you can take with you if you need to, but you have your horsepower back at home for your main computing tasks. It's typically the most efficient way to spend your money on that. Now, another thing that is really helpful is workstation computers are really expensive, especially if they are advertised that way. Now, some things that are a little bit better are gaming computers because they're going to have very similar, if not the same specs as your workstation computers. They're just going to be flashy and more competitively priced because they're trying to sell to the average consumer who wants to play games, not the average professional. Because of this, they're a lot more competitively priced, and you can normally get a better deal for the same specs by looking at gaming computers. So I always recommend to try and look at those rather than workstation advertised stuff because you're probably going to get a better deal out of it. But that is everything I would like to go over today with the presentation. Hope that helped you with your future endeavors in school and work, and thank you for watching.